Williams is bigger than me, it's bigger than Carlos, and it's bigger than Alex. But all three of us will give our all for Williams to be a successful entity again in the future. That doesn't exist with quite a number of other drivers on the grid. My goal in all of this, as is Alex, as is Carlos, is to leave our DNA, our fingerprint inside the team for it to be a championship material, which then allows them to go on and win championships. But what I mean by that is our two drivers deserve to have an ego. Frankly, they're performant and they're fast. Neither one does. It's an absolute pleasure working with them because there's something far bigger than the three of us, which is the organisation.
Welcome everybody to this week's F1 Beyond the Grid. I am delighted to say that we're being joined by James Vowles.
That's very kind of you, thank you.
James, it's good to see you. Now, you look like a man with a bit of a glow, the glow of a man who's been driving a GT3 car.
Okay. Beyond the F1 grid, but GT3 in there as well. Yeah, I really had a great time. So Jerez last week for a couple of days, and we're a heat wave in Jerez at the moment, as it turns out. So it's pretty warm, 32 degrees ambient, but a good couple of days.
Look, what is it about GT3 and people in Formula One? Because I think a lot of people watching this are going to say, okay, when is James going to hook up with Max Verstappen?
I mean, Max and I haven't spoken about that, and he's in a different league to everyone in GT3, full stop. What is it? I did it before I joined as a team principal to Williams, so I was racing in GT3 before then. I love the category because it's really good downforce in those cars and really competitive racing where you're up against some brilliant individuals. And for me personally, I haven't done it since end of 21, beginning of 22 in a competitive way. And it takes just a little bit of time to get yourself back up to a sensible place, which is hopefully where we are now. Look,
I know you've done it before. And do you fancy a crack at the Nordschleife? How far do you want to take this?
So, I mean, that's something that Max very much enjoys. I have driven the Nordschleife, not in GT3. Loved it, but that's a completely different level again. Mine is more, there are a few circuits around the world or a few races around the world I'd like to participate in time. So this is just part of the journey.
So we've seen you behind the wheel, and if you want to look at the in-car footage of James around Jerez, that is very impressive. Are you thinking like a driver these days, or are you thinking like an engineer, or neither?
In this particular circumstance, I was supported by Tom, who's one of the really quick drivers for Garage 59. And his job was to be the engineer, fascinatingly, as the driver, and he did a brilliant job in that role. No, I'm thinking more like a driver in that circumstance, albeit we did car setup changes that were more in direction of the engineering side. But primarily, I'm there to drive the car. And you have to switch mindset. It's a very different mindset, in my opinion. But I love it because it connects you to our drivers. It's as close as I can get to them. It's a different world. But it does connect you a lot to what's going through their mind, their thought process, because you are very alone and you're reliant on a team around you in order to make sure you get the best out of yourself in the car.
So can I ask you a question that I ask a lot of drivers? Are you motivated by a fear of failure or the lure of success? And that applies behind the wheel and as a team principal. I'd love your thoughts on both.
This is very personal to me, maybe not to all drivers. I have something where the morning before I got in the car, I was worried about 100 things going wrong in that particular test. It can be from anything from making a mistake, being in the gravel, crashing the car. It doesn't matter. That was where it was a very negative thought process. And one of them certainly is, I'm not good enough to be doing this. So it's a negative thought process. Then it doesn't take long. On the second test, it really didn't take long at all, where we're doing some pretty competitive time straight away. And so then you have a complete mindset change, and it's your chasing of success that is driving me along in that circumstance. And I'm not sure if that's unique to me, but there's a period of time where you're out the car, where you're reliant on others around you in order to put you in the right circumstance. But when I'm there, as it turns out, you go into a state of flow, which is what I love about it. You're just literally, you have no idea what's in the outside world anymore, no idea what's going on in Williams anymore. all it's about is how you find, in this case, it was just the last tenth that was all that was missing. What do you need to do in order to find that? And you're in a completely different programmatic mindset. And the lap times speak for themselves, so you don't have to question yourself anymore. The lap times are there. And when you're doing it, I mean, you've seen the onboard footage, there was probably only about 5 centimetres left over through a high-speed corner from when we're going into the gravel. But it was very comfortable to me at that point in time. But if you'd asked me in the morning beforehand, I would have said, I actually don't really know why I'm doing this. It doesn't make any sense at all.
Look, what about as a team principal? Is it different? Fear of failure, lure of success?
I don't have any fear of failure. So I don't think it's much different to what I've just described, except I'm more comfortable because I've been doing, whilst the TP bit only a short period of time, Formula One for 25 years. I'm doing this because I have absolute belief that I can win championships with Williams, and Williams can win championships. And so that's clearly the drive of success that's pushing me on. And if I think about failure, so it's interesting you asked the question because I'm reflecting more on the driving. Exactly whilst I'm in the car, there was no thought of failure, because typically if you think of failure, something's wrong is going to happen at that point in time. And I'm not thinking about the negative downsides of where we are. I'm thinking about what do we need to do to be successful tomorrow, the week afterwards, the year afterwards. And so it's the as you said, the allure of success that drives me on.
Well, let's talk about some success now, because this is the first time I've seen you since Baku, since the podium.
For the first time with Williams, Carlos Sainz will stand on the podium. It's Williams' first podium since 2021.
Vamos! Vamos! Best podium in my career, guys. You cannot imagine how this tastes. Thank you so much. I just wanted to say, this is my first smooth operation in Williams. And not the last, and not the last.
He will celebrate with Williams for the first time as a podium finisher, as a 4-time Grand Prix winner. Celebrating a podium like he's just won Grand Prix number 5. Amazing scenes for Williams, and their long wait to see one of their own on the podium is over. Carlos Sainz is heading to the rostrum.
How much of a lift was that for you personally and for the team?
First and foremost, I'm ecstatic for Carlos. The pace has been there for a lot of the year, and dare I say, he needed a result like this for the world to see that he is still the Carlos that deserves to be there, and that we're fortunate as Williams to have him along by our side. And he earned it. He earned it in qualifying, and he earned it in the race as well. I'm really proud of Williams. I'm proud of Williams because it's a team that was in the dark trenches of survival just a few years ago, and yet this was an earned podium. It wasn't luck or fortune that were there. Others had 50 laps to chase us down. We were good. And so for me, it meant the most of anything when it wasn't so much on the day on the podium. Of course, it was great to see the team trackside enjoying it. The most it meant to me was when I were back in the factory, we put the trophy in reception, and I just came down just randomly every half an hour, and it was just queues of people just wanting the ability to touch it for a few seconds and have a photo with it. And that's what meant the world to me. The individuals who have literally given up their life for Williams and for myself and for our journey, and it's a tiny, tiny reward for them on the way back.
It was your first podium since Brazil 2022. It was a 1-2 for Mercedes. What made this one different?
Obviously, first time as team principal, and in Mercedes, I'm part of a very strong senior leadership team that are working their way towards it, but I was one of many in that regards, and Toto is a fantastic leader above it all. This was my first where the team direction has been decided with myself and my senior leaders, and it's reward for that. And I mean, did it mean a huge amount? Yes. I mean, I really did mean it. It will stay with me for the rest of my life. There's a few things that will. Your first win, your first championship, children when they're born, and this one will stay with me for a long, long time.
Was a podium on your bingo card for 2025? Are you ahead of schedule in the rebuild?
Even on the grid, you will hear me say, I think there's a strong opportunity that McLaren should make their way back and claw back some of this from us. We know Verstappen's quick. We knew that Merck was quick as well at the same time. So I sort of had us more around 5th, a sensible, very sensible result for someone like Baku. But I think what I said to everyone is, without some level of luck or fortune that falls our way, I'm not sure we have what it in the car effectively to bring us into the podium. So it wasn't on the bingo card, because what I was talking about is I wanted to earn a podium rather than be gifted it through luck or otherwise. So no, in that circumstance. Are we ahead of schedule? No, because it's one podium. I love it to bits. It means the world to me. But it is just one podium at this stage. And what I want is almost you to be bored by it, such that you're not asking me, how was it being on the podium? And we're not there yet. We've got a long, long way to go before there.
Look, you've changed a lot inside Williams in the last 18 months, 24 months. The team's backers have spent a lot of money in that time as well. Did that podium vindicate some of the decisions you've made?
I think without question.
Did it take some pressure off you somehow?
No, I don't think so, because I build my own pressure on myself. My own journey is multiple championships with Williams, which this is just a little tiny stepping stone on that journey together. And so the pressure for me is making sure we move forward in 2026, making sure the 27 car has significant amounts of developments we can't put in place for 26, making sure the infrastructure we're building, the machinery's in place, etc. Those are the pressures I'm creating. And the output of it is a podium. A lovely podium, but that's the output of it. But it hasn't relinquished any of the pressure going forward. I think what I am pleased about, more for the investors than anyone else, is they took a leap of faith with me. They then invested in me and in the company as well at the same time. They gave me opportunities that I think most wouldn't have done, and took them through where there's areas where I'm simply not as strong as I would like to be, and they've been by my side backing me all the way through all of that.
James, I think that is one of the features of your time as team principal, your clarity of thought. It was your first job as a TP, yet you came in with no experience and seemed to know exactly how to fix Williams from the get-go.
Years of being in motorsport, I picked up a lot of learnings. If you think about Mercedes, 2010 isn't that different to where Williams is, slightly different in regards to it, but we had a very different team after Braun, and there was a lot of rebuilding from the ground up that took place, and I took the learning that I had from that. There's some more rebuilding to be doing in a little bit later on in that, and quite a bit of learning prior to that. And I was fortunate to have people around me that gave me the knowledge and experience base I needed to be able to step up towards it. And I've done other things in life a little bit outside of it, which we don't talk about much, but I don't think I've made every single decision correct. I think I've made enough correct ones that were in the right pathway and the right development. But there's bits I would have tuned or done differently had I known on the way through. That was more where I was going with it. But are we directionally correct? Yes. And does it feel natural and normal? Yes, to your point. It just seems to be that I'm happy and confident with how we should be directing the company in order to get the most out of it.
This episode is sponsored by Indeed. You know that feeling when you realise you needed to hire someone yesterday? The pressure's on, there's no time to waste, and the quicker you take action, the more chance you've got of securing the best candidate for the role before your competitors do. That's where Indeed can help. Stop struggling to get your job post seen on other sites. Just use Indeed's sponsored jobs to stand out and hire fast. Your post will jump right to the top for the most relevant candidates, so you connect with the best people for the job from the start. In fact, Indeed data shows that sponsored jobs posted directly on Indeed receive 45% more applications than non-sponsored ones. And what I love about Indeed is exactly what I love about our sport. It's streamlined, efficient, and built to deliver under pressure. No lengthy subscriptions, no locked-in contracts. You only pay for results. In the minute I've been talking to you, 23 hires were made on Indeed worldwide. There's no need to wait any longer. Speed up your hiring right now with Indeed. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/grid. Just go to Indeed.com/grid right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Indeed.com/grid. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring, Indeed is all you need. Can I dig into two things you've just said? First of all, the rebuild of Braun into Mercedes. What is there anything you can share with us that you learnt then that you've been able to apply now?
Yeah, quite a bit. So Braun, the team size was reduced down to about 450 people, but there were other teams around. We had something called an RIA at that point in time, resource restriction, which others weren't really restricting their resource. So we were actually in counterside a very small team. The reason why I have the similarities to Williams is in Brawn we didn't have much money. We restricted POs, purchase orders, right down to the bare minimum. Everything was signed off by the CFO. You really couldn't spend more than a few thousand without a significant justification behind it. And money was rightly so tight. There wasn't money available to you. The problem is that culture, that how we created that carried on through even though Mercedes were on board. And the Mercedes were, I think, initially in the hope that would be quite a small outfit. And of course, in the end, we grew into a very large outfit. But that sort of polar opposite region where you go from no money to some money to actually we've got to spend money in order to catch up. How do we do it in the most efficient way possible? I took a lot of learning out of that because it's not too different to the Williams journey. The time frame's much, much longer, but the problems you come across are very similar.
What about running a business then? You said you've done other things that you don't want to talk about. I mean, you've actually been incredibly successful with it. I think it was a software business, wasn't it?
Yeah, correct.
How much did you learn with that business that you've been able to apply now?
Yeah, huge amounts. It's sort of the bit that it's not Formula One, so that's that. But it was a business that we grew to about 80 people, then exited from, that I was running with a very good partner, an incredible human being who taught me a lot about how to run a business properly in a fair and equitable way. And there are ways of doing it in a fair and equitable way. And so it's small by the grand schemes, successful, but small by the grand schemes of most other businesses. But learned a lot about how to do proper hiring, human resources, financial control, how to actually run things on a day-to-day basis, how to bring investors in, etc. So huge amount learnt. Different scale to Williams, but nonetheless allowed me to make some good steps on that journey.
So you're nearly, 3 years in on this journey. When did you make the biggest changes inside the team, or are they still to come? Was it year 1, year 2, or is it ahead of us?
Biggest changes. There are milestones that keep appearing, I would say ballpark once every 3 months, that are fairly significant changes, and that still happens today. And still on the roadmap for what we have for 26 will take place at the beginning of 26, mid 26, end of 26. Very, very large changes, and even how we operate. So it hasn't slowed down yet. It took me probably the first, it wasn't complete as a journey, but almost the first year to properly dig down to the very bottom and understand really what was right and what was wrong, what we need to work on, what we need to keep. People often talk about the first 30 days or the first 90 days. The reality behind it is that this business had so many areas of complexity that if you just pull the plug on the wrong bit, you wouldn't have a car anymore. Simple as that. So it's about making sure we're making change at the rate the company can absorb and take, whilst not destroying the business at the same time. If we didn't go racing in 24 and 25, this would be a hell of a lot easier. It'd be a lot easier to rebuild it in a much shorter space of time. But the beauty, and this is what I love about our business, is you can't stand still. You have to be continuously edging forward to then gain the interest from partners, from sponsors, from Formula One, from the outside world, whilst you're still trying to rebuild it. And so the analogy that's often used is many of them. One is running a hotel while you're renovating the rooms. That's not too bad. You can close down some of the rooms, but you can't do a lot of that in the Formula One team. One was doing open heart surgery while they're running a marathon. And they're good analogies. Horrible analogy. But that is what you're trying to do. You're trying to rebuild some real fundamentals, but making sure that you still deliver a car with 4 wheels pointing the right way. And the way I went about it, and this is what I meant by it took the first year, was making sure everyone was aware that where we are is far, far away from championship benchmark, which is moving on, stepping forward day by day. So even my perception of what championship benchmark will be out of date now relative to when I started. Probably sufficient to get us to where we need to be, but it is out of date. The next element of things is making sure that everyone's aware that, and my own clarity on it, that whether we have any systems or not that are benchmark or at the level, and if they're not, can we just destroy them and start again? And what feels uncomfortable to everyone is, in that circumstance, can we even leave this basically burn on the floor? There's a lot of fires. That's what happens. Lots of fires around. And the answer to that was yes. We nearly didn't get a car out at the end for the 24 season. That was on the limit. I think people saw the output of that, which was 2 chassis and 1 car not running in Melbourne 2024. I still have no regrets about that, because we needed to start to push the business in a really hard way. But that was about the limit of as far as we could push ourselves within Williams to breaking point. That was big technology changes, big introductions of different ways of working, and barely got a car out the door as a result of it. That momentum, though, allowed us to carry through all the way into 24, and this car is a result of it, where we're a lot more in control of what we're doing. And I have some good news, 26 car will be even more in control again, but we're still pushing the boundaries every week. So to answer your question, nothing's slowed down. I would argue it's accelerated as we have more and more ability to do that without a risk of a car not appearing.
I get your point that Formula One never stands still, right? But how close is the Williams of today, end of 2025, to the Mercedes that you left?
In reality, there's a gulf between what we had.
And are you talking infrastructure there?
A little bit of everything. Some of the machines that we're still operating today are 12 years old, not anywhere near the level of accuracy that I'd like. The output is lower than I know others can be achieving.
James, sorry to interrupt, but someone who's not worked in a team, is 12 years in Formula One a lifetime? Do front-running teams not have anything that old?
It would be unusual. I mean, the oldest is about 25, just for transparency. I chose something a little bit more middle ground. It's entirely possible to have a machine that's maybe 8 to 10 years old. It's highly unlikely anyone has anything that's 25 years old, which is what we're running in the business in quite a few areas of it. We're cycling and replacing all of it through. So we have some machines, for clarity, that are 3 years old. Dalton did a brilliant job of, before I joined, before cost cap properly kicked in, of at least buying a few of these to bring us to benchmark. But that's just a few of them. There's lots of lovely systems. There's something called an etching machine, which is used for carbon fibre. That lovely piece of art is about 35 years old, for example. But we do need to accept that we have a lack of efficiency compared to others by using these. And our journey is one of making sure we replace everything that is in the right order for the business. So the simple matter of fact is taking these all offline, which you can do, has a knock-on penalty to the team. So you can't do it all at once. You just need to make sure you choose your areas of investment and then hit them hard and quick and efficient at the same time. And that's the journey we're on at the moment. And as I've described to everyone, it's going the right way. But we have to accept that, is everything at Mercedes level? No, not whatsoever at all. They did a brilliant job of investing at the right time before cost cap to get themselves in a very strong position.
If an engineer, an ex-Williams engineer who'd been away, let's say, 10 years, came back to work at the team now, what do you think would be the biggest change that person would notice?
A lot more structure behind how we communicate and how we work, a huge amount more. So first of all, we have data wrapped around everything now that we didn't when I joined. Even to the extent of not even knowing how many parts we were building in WIP, basically work in progress in the building, what the cost of those parts are, how many people are needed to make those parts, how many parts do we actually need. None of that was there. It was in a few people's heads, and they're incredibly passionate individuals that would do everything and go above and beyond, but that isn't workable. So the number one is there'll be a recognizing that there's process, structure, procedure, and data wrapped around everything. Number two is communication. There is, we continue to do this every day, but we're breaking down the walls that exist inside the company. I don't believe there's any one part of it that makes the company successful. It is about 1,000 people, ballpark, working together and pulling the same way. The next element that I think someone would come in is that there is a lot of the facility that's been upgraded. Still plans to upgrade huge amounts more, but visually the whole inside of it has changed, which is quite positive as well.
Can we talk drivers now? At the end of last year, you said often that you thought you had the best driver pairing in Formula One in 2025 and beyond, in Alex and Carlos. Having worked with Carlos now, do you stand by that comment? Because you've worked with a lot of great drivers. And has Carlos surprised you in any way?
I still stand by my comments. I know it bores the world when I say it, but Williams is bigger than me. It's bigger than Carlos and it's bigger than Alex. But all three of us will give our all for Williams to be a successful entity again in the future. That doesn't exist with quite a number of other drivers on the grid. My goal in all of this, as is Alex, as is Carlos, is to leave our DNA, our fingerprint inside the team for it to be a championship material which then allows them to go on and win championships. But what I mean by that is our two drivers deserve to have an ego. Frankly, they're performant and they're fast. Neither one does. It's an absolute pleasure working with them because there's something far bigger than the three of us, which is the organisation. As to what surprised me with Carlos, really good way of working with engineering teams. Very clear, concise feedback that directs us where we need to be. I didn't have to ask him to come into the factory. He came in at 9 a.m. one day. He was already sat with the aero team deep in conversations over exactly at this point in the day. Just there, that's where I feel the front washout. And look, around turn 9, again there, that's where I feel it. And they start to, basically, we watched about a team of 15 people, then break down into that and go, I wonder if it's associated with X, Y, and Z. That wasn't me saying, Carlos, I really need you in the factory on a Monday morning at 9 a.m. to go and work with people. It's his incentive to do so because he wants the team to be successful. And I think that caught me off guard. I've seen many drivers in my lifetime. It's rare for one to be awake before 8 a.m. But more importantly, wanting to spend their time with a team in that way.
This episode is sponsored by Shopify. When you start your business, you end up wearing a lot of hats. 1 hour, you're the designer. The next, you're the customer service team or the accountant, and sometimes all in the same afternoon. That's why finding the right tool to make all of that easier is such a big deal. And for millions of businesses, that tool is Shopify. Shopify powers 10% of all e-commerce in the US, from household names like Mattel and Gymshark to brands that are just getting started. With hundreds of ready-made templates, you can build an online store that looks like you. And its smart AI tools will help you write product descriptions, craft headlines, and even tidy up your product photos. Add on its built-in email and marketing tools, and suddenly, reaching new customers feels way less daunting. Think of Shopify as your business partner that's already an expert in everything, from managing stock and shipping worldwide to handling returns smoothly. If you're ready to sell, you're ready for Shopify. Turn your big business idea into with Shopify on your side. Sign up for your $1 per month trial and start selling today at shopify.com/beyondthegrid. Go to shopify.com/beyondthegrid. Shopify.com/beyondthegrid. Now, you said a little bit earlier in this chat that you were really pleased for Carlos about the podium. Did you sense frustration creeping in prior to Baku? I mean, he'd had that consistent run between sort of Saudi and Canada, hadn't he? But it had always been for the lower points paying positions. Was he getting a little bit frustrated, even desperate, or is that too strong a word?
No, he never got to that level. I think part of it is he wanted to prove to me you've definitely made the right decision by taking the risks you have on me at the same time. I think part of it was that neither he nor I believe in bad luck. It's hard to describe what's gone wrong, but bad luck is self-created, in my opinion. You can do enough preparation to somewhat mitigate or avoid a lot of it. And yet you look at the races, and the stat I think that was provided to him was 11 races in 19 he's had some sort of incident. And it's stats that you start to question things with. And that's where, not for me personally, I was very relaxed. And what I said to him was that nothing was about 25. Everything was about making sure you're helping us develop and build ourselves really into a championship level team, such that when the car comes along, and it will take a little bit more time, we're ready to go in that regard. He put pressure on himself, but every racing driver I know puts pressure on themselves, because that's how you get the most out of yourself in that regard. I think he had a frustration that he had opportunities to show his potential, and it just didn't work out for one way or another. But he was also incredibly professional at resetting himself before we got into that race event. And that's what happened on Baku on the Thursday night. So everyone around Carlos is called Carlos Sainz. So myself, Carlos Sainz, and Carlos Sainz had dinner.
Just for clarity, other Carlos Sainz is his manager, isn't he?
Is his manager in this circumstance. Yeah. Although, ironically, he said everyone in our team's called James, which he's not wrong about either. So it's probably horses for courses. And we just had a really honest chat about what's gone wrong, how do we mitigate it, what's gone well as well. There were so many things that he's brought to the team. An example is what I've just given you here, where I guarantee you we have found performance as a result of his hard work this year. And when we started to roll through it, you could see almost a weight lifting off his shoulders, because I'm not worried about the now. We're here for a longer term picture together and performance together, and it will come. I'm very confident it will come. What he has is performance. If he didn't have performance, we've got a big problem.
Do you know what, interestingly, in the post-qualifying press conference in Baku, I suggested to him that the transition to Williams hadn't been the easiest, and he was very quick to put me straight on that. And he said, the transition to Williams from Ferrari has been fine. It's just the results that haven't been kind. But he was very, very determined that I needed to be corrected on that.
I would say it took him a few races, without question, to get up to speed on. There are PU differences and there's a balance difference, which is, I'm fairly confident, the same in return that Lewis is struggling with a little bit. Our cars are quite different between a Ferrari and a Williams. But I also would agree with him, if you remember around Imola time, for example, that wasn't that far in the season, he out-qualified Alex. And his stats in qualifying aren't bad at all. But it has been filled with just random events that you couldn't predict beforehand. So he's somewhat true in what he's saying. But I think what he also means is he feels at home in Williams, as I do as well, very quickly, because the team's good at doing that.
When you have a driver who's won before, as Carlos has, do you sense them step up when there's the opportunity of a big result? Did you see anything different in Carlos after qualifying when the podium was there for the taking, arguably?
Yes, but what I saw more was what I'm used to from from Mercedes, which is a driver that was incredibly relaxed. For him, it was just business as usual in that circumstance. And I think his calmness very much spread across everyone as the result of it, because frankly, he has been there and done that before. He had belief in the car, belief we're quick enough. And so that was a different Carlos. I don't think that's anything to do with the fact it's a good result in what has been a somewhat difficult season for whatever reason. I think that's just more, that is Carlos. He's great when you put him in the position where he has a sniff at something special.
So what about Alex? Let's bring him in on this now. Have you seen him step it up this year?
First of all, did Alex mention Thai food in the conference today?
There was no mention of Thai food, no.
I think there was a challenge on him.
There must be share it.
I only caught them doing this, but there's basically a challenge that you had to insert the word Thai food. And I said, that's really easy. My favourite food is Thai food. You can put that in anywhere. But anyway, apparently that's what he should have been doing today. Hopefully I haven't ruined something for the future. Back to Alex. Alex, I've had the pleasure of knowing him since 2016. I could tell you from the outset he was very quick, but he needed the right forum where the world isn't questioning his teammates or what's going on. There's no questioning now. Carlos is absolutely the reference you need. And yet Alex this year, every time there has been a result, he's gone and picked it up. Simple as that. And his pace has been outstanding. I think if there's any doubts, it should be gone by now in people's minds.
But in what areas, in terms of what he's doing behind the wheel, his inputs, are they different?
No, I would say the biggest difference I've noticed with Alex is a step up in his confidence and belief. That's the main thing, in the team and in himself at the same time.
In terms of what he wants from the car?
The best way to explain it to you is that every human being goes through cycles where they're more or less confident in themselves and the car and what goes around. You cannot waver Alex one bit this year. Not for a second can you even just push him. He is absolutely confident in what he is doing and what the car is doing around that. That doesn't mean we're perfect on the car, not by any stretch of the imagination, but his driving force is one of fix this, and I will go faster, and it's directing the team in the right way. And I think that comes from, my point is, has Alex always been quick? Yes, I guarantee you he's always been quick. Is he now in a position where he knows how to extract the last few milliseconds from the car? Because in doing so, you can put yourself in a much better place, definitely. And we have some peculiarities in this car on just how to approach certain corners, simple as that. But he's really, really good at vocalizing that, helping Carlos as well. He's not keeping it for himself. It's immediately straight out there and look at this is what I'm doing here. And then helping the engineers drive the direction of travel. And it's in that way, he's more vocal than I've heard him before, and his direction is absolutely spot on. So that's what I meant by confidence as the driver.
You said earlier that they rub along very well together. Is one of them the alpha in that relationship?
Not really. Again, I go back to their egos are checked at the door, and it is fantastic. There is no alpha between the two of them. There's no one area that the other one is trying to dominate in any particular space. They just want the same thing, which is the car to be quick.
Right. If the car is quick in the future and you're challenging for race wins, and do you think the relationship could need managing, or are you confident that they'll stay as they are?
I'm confident I can create a structure that allows them to push each other and themselves and the team, but in a way that's cohesive towards the result. I'm very confident of that.
Just out of interest on this topic, when you look back at your time at Merck, and I'm going to talk about Rosberg and Hamilton now, with the experience, the decade of experience you've gained since then, if that situation were to arise at Williams, would you do things differently to how they were done back then?
I would do it more how we learnt how to process it towards the later years. I think I was very green in 2014, 2015. We had a structure nowhere near robust and strong enough to deal with two potential world champions, which is what they are. And I've learned a tremendous amount from that. And we changed quite a bit on how we were handling things 2016, 2017, 2018, and even all the way up until 2021. So I've had the benefit at the end of that journey, and then also followed by the additional learning I've had since then as well. So there'll be refinements. You don't throw the baby out with the bathwater, but there's definite refinements on how to work it. Professional racing drivers are like any elite athlete in the world. They want to have something where they know they can push the limits to, but in a way that they understand what those limits are, so that when they're transcending it, you have a correction mechanism in place. And the real key behind it is, think of it as creating a box around them. That's your box. That's where you push into it. You push a millimetre over that, on the other hand, you step into my world, and this is how we correct it. And that just gives them the forum that they know where they can press each other, press the team, but in a controlled way.
I get trying to compartmentalise people, but people don't like being put in boxes, do they?
To be clear, though, they still can be themselves and human beings. There's just certain ways. The real description of it is this. This is probably an easier way to, I hope, explain it. You want to be remembered for being a true sportsperson through and through. Hopefully one that is a winner and a winner of a championship. It only takes one event that you lose the faith and trust of the team and everyone in the world potentially around you at that point in time. One event is normally all it takes. And so the construct isn't trying to restrict them, it's trying to give them the boundaries where they know as a sportsman they can absolutely push themselves to the limit, but at least they know where the limit is now. Because unguided, that limit could be in a very different place.
I'm really interested in your philosophy on this. So what is the right thing? I mean, we're seeing it at McLaren now. I think it's an interesting time in Formula One in terms of, do you want two number ones like you have at Williams, like McLaren has, or actually is it better to have a slightly more of a Red Bull system where you've got one clear number one and you don't have any of the potential pitfalls of putting people in boxes and don't stray into that area and things like that?
Horses for courses. My goal is to win 2 championships, but the Constructors is the one that is probably the most rewarding, certainly for us as individuals. You don't do that with really a large gulf between your 2 drivers. More so than that, I think I'm confident there are ways of dealing with events. You've got to be very careful not to play God. Just to be really clear, I think there is boundaries, and playing God is one of those boundaries, and that's sort of where there's a fine line. You've got to be very careful to transcend the wrong side of it.
So what is your job as the team? Just to give them equal equipment and then let them go? Or are you playing God if you do more than that?
No, I think you can do a smite more than that, because smite's the right word to use in there, it felt natural, because there's one pit stop box to be using at that point in time as well. So you are restricted. It's not 2 places. You can't stop both on the same lap. So you do need to create a construct around them that they know that whether you qualify first or second, that doesn't define where you finish in the race. There is an ability to race each other, and this is what it looks like. So it doesn't quite end there, because otherwise you end up with 2 cars in one pit box at one point in time, and that would be chaos. But I mean, I think McLaren have this rule as well. Rule number 1 is you don't take each other out, you don't hurt each other, you don't push each other off track. We are here as a team, and the team is bigger than the 2 of you. And if you're winning a championship or fighting for a championship, that's the result of all of us working together at this point in time, not despite the fact that we're all working together. And that's sort of the core rule that you can't go beyond. And when I spoke about 2016, or my learning was you've got to be so clear on that, abundantly clear, that people understand that when you transcend that, the consequences are dire. And so that's part of it, which you could argue is put it into the bracket of again, the box that people don't like.
What sort of consequences do Formula One drivers react to? What's in your armoury? How do you punish a world champion elect?
The most harshest of punishments is you're not in the car next week. Correct.
And you would have that in your back pocket?
If you had two drivers that were pushing themselves, that they are effectively crashing into each other more than they're finishing a race, yes.
I mean, is the secret here, James, to have two very quick drivers but at completely different stages of their career?
I'm not sure that helps you either, because any driver I've ever worked with that has the pace that you're talking about, irrespective of where they are in their career, will want to win championships and win races. It's just doing it, as I said, in a way that I think is the right sportsman-like conduct that goes with it at the same time.
This episode is sponsored by Vanta. In today's landscape, businesses can't just claim security, they have to prove it. Achieving compliance with frameworks like SOC 2, ISO 27001 or GDPR is how businesses demonstrate strong security practices. The trouble is, it can take a long time and get very complicated. That's why Vanta is on hand to help. Vanta can help you get compliant fast and stay that way thanks to its industry-leading AI tech, automation, and continuous monitoring. With Vanta, you can automate compliance across more than 35 frameworks, fly through security questionnaires up to 5 times faster, and let it all run quietly in the background while you focus on growth. And the best part, Vanta scales right alongside you. I love how Vanta helps companies of all sizes save time and money. In fact, according to a recent IDC study, Vanta customers save over $500,000 a year in costs and are 3 times more productive. Visit vanta.com/grid to sign up for a free demo today. That's vanta.com/grid. On the topic of young drivers, I think it's an incredibly interesting time for Formula One now, in that people are pushing drivers through, and I think maybe Max Verstappen skewed people's perceptions of what's possible by getting in the car in 2015, age 17. But do you think young drivers are being pushed through too quickly? Look at the Liam Lawsons and the Kimi Antonellis this year.
I think, for what it's worth, you saw Kimi coming back more in the second half of the year, so it probably tells you he's learning very quickly, but he is learning, and he wasn't up to speed immediately. I think here's the biggest difference for me. The grid in Monza, I think, was 8 tenths separating all of us. The difference now to before is, in the previous world, you could do a small mistake. A small mistake would be a tenth or 2 tenths, and probably still qualify 1 position behind your teammate. It's not the end of the world, is it? You do that now, and you qualify 5 positions behind your teammate. It's a completely different world to where you were. And so, for good, I think Formula One should be this close-knit competitive order where you get punished for making mistakes. But I think when we speak about rookies or not, we have to understand that that's the sort of mistake they will be making, and when you do make it, it's a lot more of an impact than it was just a few years ago in that regard. Do I think they're being pushed too early? It depends what your agenda is. If Mercedes' agenda, and I think it was that 25 is a year that they know they're not going to be the strongest, but 26 is, you need to forward invest in your driver at that point in time. And as long as you have the right construct around them, that you support them all the way through the process, they'll come out the other side alive. Are conversely some drivers being pushed into, Max is just outstanding in what he can do in the car. What he did in Baku in qualifying cannot be underestimated. That track was in an awful condition, and he nailed a lap, absolutely nailed a lap. That's hard to be up against, as any teammate in the world would be. And it's back to what I spoke to you at the very beginning about, which is, I know in the context of me and GT3, but if you start questioning yourself, it can be a negative spiral that you struggle to get out of. And it's even more reinforced when you're against someone that does some magical things in the car. But we also have to remember that we are, in my opinion, the best motorsport category that exists in the world, with the 20 best drivers. So the pressure on your shoulders is just a part of getting in that car.
I mean, my next question on this theme is, do you think the minimum age for a super license should be increased? I mean, it's currently 18. What happens if you put it up to 21?
I think we're in a good place now. I think 18 is a sensible place to be. I'll put it to you differently. If Kimi wasn't in a Mercedes and he was in a different team, he wouldn't have been with us, but somewhere else. So he was less in the limelight, but he was learning his way through. I think the world would have accepted, that's fine, that's just a part of the journey, because that used to be how you were doing these things. So did he have a place in Formula One? 100%. And was he fine at 18, the maturity at 18 to go there? Yes, I think so as well. So the age doesn't concern me. I think it's more, are we doing enough to help the rookie drivers with enough experience in the car to get them up to speed as quickly as possible? And that might be an area that we need to, as a sport, keep working on. It's one that comes to the table frequently.
Do you mean more driving over Grand Prix weekends, more FP1s, or do you think more testing in between races?
Well, you can already see on the FP1s we've changed. So we've got 4 FP1s now this year compared to 2. Good step in the right direction. But I think, is there a way, I mean, I'm making up rules now, is there a way of effectively someone in the first year getting either an extra set of tyres or an extra half an hour worth of practice in that circumstance? It'd be a bit boring because there'd be 4 cars going around the track. It doesn't have to be every race, just at a number of races. Do we think that's fair or unfair, or the correct way of going about it? It's one of the questions I would put forward, but we have a responsibility to make sure we're bringing young drivers into the sport. The sport has a continuum beyond the current field, but we also want them to be competitive from the outset to a certain extent. How do we create that? The counter to what I've just said is, if I look at what's going on with a lot of the individuals, some of it can only be learnt by racing, frankly, and getting caught up in those conditions. And the learning will stay with them forever, but half an hour more here or there probably won't make the difference to that.
I mean, you've worked with a lot of young drivers. Franco Colapinto did 9 races for you at the end of last season. He came in swinging. I think it was 2 points finishes in the opening 4 races. Then he had a few crashes, and the end of his time with you wasn't so stunning. Is that what we're talking about here?
So he's an interesting case, because his performance, as you said, even in Monza was fantastic. Baku was extraordinary. Really did a great job of getting up to speed quickly. He did a lot of our simulator work. We saw it from the FP1. We didn't prepare him anywhere near the amount that I would like to prepare a young driver, which is what I said at the time. But he absorbed it brilliantly. What was then interesting is he didn't have a drive with us going forward. We'd already signed at that point Carlos and Alex. So the pressure on his shoulders was, I need to show the world I'm quick enough so that I earn my place in Formula One the following year. And then that result of that was, as you said, there was a number of instances that started popping up. So what was interesting there is the pressure he as a human being created on his own shoulders increased as the result of wanting more for himself in the future. So more running may not have helped in that circumstance, but it does illustrate to you the pressure that these individuals go through on a daily basis, and it's impressive how they absorb it.
Do you think all the talk about Red Bull in the last few races last year turned his head and distracted him in some way?
Distracted, no, but did it definitely? Again, I'll go back to what he thought is, I need to show the world that I'm deserving of this. Now, for me, exactly to your point, he did show the world at the beginning, carry on as you are, you're doing a really good job of this. But when you want something so much, you can sometimes not deliver it to the same level you did before, which is, I think, a good example of it.
Yeah.
He's still quick, very, very quick, there's no doubt about that. But to your point, he got caught up in incidents that maybe he wouldn't have done otherwise. I didn't find him distracted. He was just worried that his time in Formula One would be over, and was trying to make sure through any means he could it wasn't.
And is it very easy to overdrive the current breed?
Yes. Yeah, that's the bit that probably I didn't go into detail there. It's incredibly easy to overdrive these cars. It's probably the biggest single mistake we all make, but it's definitely tough to do so.
Brilliant. Well, look, last topic, if I may. Let's throw it forward to 2026. We're 5 months, that's all, away from the first Grand Prix of the new era. What are you expecting from the cars next year?
So I think you're going to get, my prediction is overtaking in a different way to how it's achieved at the moment. There's no DRS, but there'll be a difference in how you use your energy. It's a lot more of a chess game for the drivers on how you efficiently use your car and your energy, more so than it is this year. And sort of put some numbers on that. There'll be some tracks where in a single braking zone you can almost fill the battery up entirely, but the next straight you can almost empty it entirely as well, depending on the length of the straight. But that creates a different dynamic to what we have today, and that creates a really different dynamic when you're racing someone at the same time.
Is there a particular type of track where they will excel?
So at the moment, there really is probably only 2 tracks where we're not very energy rich. Everything else is going to be fine for the purpose of it. And those 2 tracks are Spa and Monza. They're just a little bit more difficult on the energy side. For teams like ourselves, it's a clean sheet of paper. So we have the opportunity, nothing carries, not even a bolt carries over next year. So we have the opportunity to really dig out what we've been doing for the last 10 years that's not quite up to the right level and start again. So it creates opportunity for us. It'll mix the grid up. It probably won't be the order that you have today, which again I think is good for the sport. I don't think the grid will go like 2014 into this massive expansion. I think there'll be a little bit more of a gap than we have now. But that just creates a different dynamic to where we are. And then there's going to be certain power units that are strong on certain types of track and others that are weak on certain types of track. So I think you'll get a different dynamic to where we are today, where all the power units have pretty much come within the same margin of tolerance as each other.
The talk in the paddock is that the Mercedes PU is looking impressive. I don't know whether you can give us any intel on that and what sort of opportunities you feel Williams has got.
I think it's an interesting talk of the paddock because no one knows. That's just the facts behind it. It's not like all the PU manufacturers come together with some cards, top trumps, and go, okay, I'm here on power, okay, I'm here on electrical, I'm here on weight, I'm here on cooling efficiency. The Mercedes have always done well on regulation changes because they get ahead of the curve, they forward invest ahead of the curve. There's no doubt about that. But the reality behind it is we don't know what Ferrari have got, what Honda have got. It's just a complete unknown at this point in time. So I'm really pleased with the work that Mercedes have done with their preparation and their development. But until the lights go out in Australia, no one knows.
How close are you to your sort of race 1 spec?
Still a way away. It's within the next probably 7 weeks or so, you'll probably get there. So pushing it quite late.
And are you seeing massive gains? You know, you say a little bit earlier, you were saying once every 3 months we're still pushing and we're seeing different things in the factory. Are you seeing that rate in terms of car development as well?
You have good weeks and bad weeks. Always when you're in the new regulation set, and especially in the first year, you feel like heroes because you can find quite a bit of performance in quite a few different areas. And we're on a good pathway at the moment. But the reality behind it is this is where you do get little hints up and down the paddock. I think most people are finding it's all on a positive slope at the moment. So it's just how those relative slopes shake out in a few months' time. That'll be the interesting part.
It's going to be so exciting, isn't it? And do you know what? Irrespective, James, as to where you fall out in the pecking order, one thing that has changed for you personally this year, and I think it's so evident when you look at social media feeds and things, is you're standing in the sport. I mean, I was at the fan forum earlier and I saw the reception that you had when you came on the stage. I mean, it's pretty mental how I feel your life has changed on that front. Does it feel a bit crazy to you?
The fan forum was incredible. I've never seen that before. We've done a few of them. That's the most extreme it's got. I'm pleased the world is resonating with who I am as an individual and a person. That makes me very happy. I'll go back to, I love this business. I love what I'm doing with Williams and I love the job. And this comes as a part of it. It's a different part of it. It's not one that I signed up to necessarily. It's not why I'm doing this job. I'm doing this job to make fast racing cars. But what I really enjoy is today, for example, there's probably about 5,000 people in that room shouting and screaming to a level where I still slightly lost my hearing now. And they're on the journey with us, and that makes me so proud that we've managed to turn it around. But the way I see it is just myself and Williams are interchangeable in that they're supporting us growing as a team.
Do you feel a responsibility though?
Oh, without question. Yeah, 100%.
But to the fans, not only a responsibility as TP.
Yeah, no, 100% to the fans. Some of them have followed us in the darkest of times when you're barely scoring a point. Some of us are new fans to who we are. Some of us followed from Ferrari to Williams. So you sort of get a mix between a red and a blue as they're also going through the transition at the moment. But irrespective to all of that, we're an independent company. That's what Williams is. I don't sell fizzy drinks. I don't sell road cars. We're here because we're here to go racing. And we're here to go racing because we have a fan base that supports us behind it. So I have a responsibility towards them because ultimately they're our customers in that regard.
James, what a brilliant chat. Thank you so much for your time. Look, final one, and this is the question I'm asking everybody on the pod this year. Formula One is 75 years old this year. Do you have a favourite moment in those 75 years that you can share with us? Doesn't have to be your career, it can be anything.
Oh, there's quite a few. The images of Senna on board at Monaco, they're sort of engraved in my mind. Manual gear changes, proper
When did you
engines.
first fall in love with Formula One?
It's hard to say because I remember different parts of it. I remember very much the sort of 92 era. I remember 94 with sadness, unfortunately. And this isn't just attributed to Williams, but Williams was the team I followed when I was much, much younger. I used to sit on the sofa with someone who's really like a brother to me, but we're not blood brothers. We both went through something together. And he supported Ferrari. So you can sort of see the iconic times, including 96s and 97s, where we might have had a dispute. But Williams was the team I followed, which is to a certain extent why I mentioned Senna. That wasn't in Williams, but I remember the Mansell times, I remember the Damon times, I remember the Jacques times, I remember those sort of championships. So you're sort of into the early 90s through to the late 90s. I'm not sure I fell in love with it. I watched the sport and thought, this is brilliant. But for transparency, I watched MotoGP as well with Valentino winning races. I was sort of a little bit between those two sports.
And you are a biker.
And I'm a biker, and that goes with it as well, you understand that. But I think truly it was probably towards the mid to late 90s where I really connected with the sport, where I connected with the fact that I've always been highly competitive all my life. I've always been seeking to be surrounded by those that are incredibly intelligent, pushing themselves every day. And I started to see a reflection of myself in Formula One. But I never realised or thought it would be a professional career for me. I just enjoyed what it was. So answering your question, probably in that time period.
Well, I've seen you on a paddle court.
Yeah,
You are competitive.
very competitive, yeah. We had a really good paddle game here with Frankie, who's one of the GB players. But I'm sad to say we lost our game.
I don't believe it.
Sad times.
James, great chat. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Appreciate it.